Welcome. I'm here to tell us about our new game generator for Tic-Tac-Toe. This will allow you to create a partner game with up to 9 prompts and 9 results. We're going to talk about how to create the customized game using the Google Slides and talk a little bit about how you might manage gameplay with students. Once you've created your game, this will be an example of how your game board will look. Students will have cards that will give them a prompt, and based on that prompt, they'll cover that space with either an X or an O. Let's first talk about how to create that customized game using Google Slides. Just like in our Move It generator, you're going to use the Control H, find and replace all. So I do Control H to open up the menu. And it's going to allow me to type in the text that I want to be replaced with what I want to replace it with. This column, this chart on the right, will give you exactly what text you need to replace. Let me give you an example. Let's do an activity that is number before, focusing in on crossing decades. And I have up to 9 prompts that I can give. And suppose I want to focus on a little bit larger numbers. So I might start with finding the number before 40, 50, and 60 and take it all the way into the hundreds. So let's give you an example of that. And I'm going to do the game cards first. So I'm going to replace game card. One of them is going to have a 40 on it. And I need to hit replace all here. That's absolutely critical. Next game card will have a 50. And I'm modifying that text of those game cards that are already created, already stacked in a somewhat random order. So students will have these prompts. And I'm wanting to push them into those early 100 numbers. So I might do, I'm going to have 100. But I want them also to push into finding the number before 110 and 120. So I wanted to get that exposure into 3-digit numbers with my choice of cards. Now I need to update the game boards so they have the matching answers for the students to cover. So I'm going to replace AAA with a 39 because I'm finding that number before 40. BBB will be replaced with 49. Whoops, 49, and so on. So remember, I'm using that find and replace menu. And it's absolutely critical that you hit replace all here. If you hit replace, you're going to fix it in the chart, but not on the game boards. Well, it takes a couple minutes to update the board. It's going to give us 6 ready to play game boards. I'll close that menu. You can see in our chart, we've updated those values. The second slide will show you exactly what will be on the game cards. And here we have an example now of the updated game board. So we see that we have little movable X's and O's. And so we can let the student choose if they're going to be X or O. Moving the pieces can be done in 2 ways. One, they could be logged into the same Google Slides file. To do that, I would share the file with them. I could do that by giving them a link. If I'd share it by link, I need to make sure that they have editing privileges. If I use something like Google Classroom, I could assign the resource to them in that way. If I'm in a web conferencing program like Zoom, then I could give them control. That is actually a Zoom feature, and I'm giving them control of my computer screen. So the system basically recognizes they're moving their mouse as if I were moving my mouse. And so it allows them to click and move something. But that's a feature that's built into some of the web conferencing programs such as Zoom. We have found that the device the student is using matters. So unfortunately, it appears Chromebooks don't have this capability. At least that's been my personal experience. Whereas if the students are on a more traditional laptop, they could be given that permission in some of the web conferencing programs. Another feature that's more available is annotation. So they may not be able to move the X and the O, but they might be able to use an annotation feature within the web conferencing program and draw on the screen. In which case, instead of sliding over the X and O, they would mark the space using the drawing tools versus using the shapes. So you have a couple different ways that students can interact with the game board. Now let's talk just a little bit about how those game cards create the gameplay. So I'm going to delete, and my first card here is 100. Suppose X is our player to go first. X is going to then cover the number before 100. So they're not going to have a choice of space. They need to cover the number that is before. O's turn. O is going to cover the number before 50. So they're going to cover 49. Now it's X's turn. X will cover the number before 80. O's turn. O will cover the number before 60. X's turn. X will cover the number before 70. O's turn. And X's turn. Oh, and we actually do have a winner. About 2/3 of these seem to end up in a winner, but not every time. And that winner is, we tried to make that vary so that it's not always the first person who plays who's going to win. So it gives you a little bit of a sense. You can also see that gameplay is fairly quick. So we do have 6 different game boards with 6 different stacks of cards. And we do find that typically students are going to play easily more than one tic-tac-toe round and could potentially work through all 6 tic-tac-toes. So if I'm wanting more than one pair to play, I'm going to duplicate that slide and give them that opportunity to play on their own copy of the board. Because again, most partners are going to work through more than one game board. You may need all 3 slides for a pair, and then I need to make copies. To tell students which ones to be on, I might use a text box and put the student names on there so they know who is playing on which board. So I hope that gives you a little bit of sense of how you might update that game and use it. I'd also like to point out that I could, and I'm just going to do some Control-Z's here to reset my board, because I just want to give you an example of how I could have done something different when I created this. So suppose I wanted to work on doubles. So now I'm going to do my Control-H. And this time, instead of putting in a single number, I might actually go ahead and put in the doubles expression. I apologize, it does take just a few moments to make these updates. So now I have those larger doubles. I have a few more blanks here, and I'm going to go ahead and repeat some of these more challenging doubles in there. And in fact, might actually undo this and say, my students actually really know 10 plus 10. Like, that's not the math I'm working on. So maybe instead of putting a 10 plus 10 in there, I put another 6 plus 6 in there, because I really want them practicing the stuff that's more challenging to them. So now I have some repeats. I have expressions. I do need to go through and make my game board to match those game cards. Yeah, it does take just a few moments. We're pretty quickly able to create that customized game. Now remember, I've got to match the prompt cards. Now, if you want to mix up the play here, for example, I've always consistently matched, and the next step would be to make HHH the 16, but technically there's not a reason to do that. It just varies the gameplay a little bit. I could make III the 16 and make HHH the 18. So if I find that I really need more copies of the game board doing the same skill, but I want different gameplay, you can change kind of how the game plays out. It sort of adds a random element if you mix up the order. So how does that change our experience? Well, when my first card is 7 plus 7 and I'm player X, now I have a choice. I could cover this 14 or this 14. So we get a little more tic-tac-toe game strategy. We also get more practice of the targeted mathematics. I can cover this 12 or this 12. So students are going to have repetition, more frequency with those tests that we want them to have, and a little more of a strategy-based game. And so we're more likely to have a tic-tac-toe winner. I hope that you enjoy and your students enjoy playing tic-tac-toe. Let us know if you have questions. We'd love to hear from you, and we'd love to see examples of your completed games. Thank you.